Hey, Pang.
Hey,
How
hi
are you?
Dinesh, how are you doing?
Yeah, not too bad, man. Thank you. Little knackered. Day one of what happened last night. I was up pretty much all night, like trying to catch up lives. Yeah, pretty knackered. Can definitely do with a little bit of sleep, but I'm like super excited for day two now. So I'm like trying to stay up and hopefully catch up with what's going to happen today. Really looking forward, especially with what happened on day one and how well India bounced back. So yeah, the initial thoughts. So just want to see what you think about
Yeah,
day one.
I missed the first session. It was like in UK, it was like 2 a.m. So when I tried to put an alarm, so around 5 o'clock, I tried to start watching. Started watching around about five, and then yeah, a bit surprised in terms of the pitch movement. Right, generally it doesn't. I think so. There were some stats which came out. I think in 1952, after 1952, such deviations happened, like 17 wickets in a day in Australia. It doesn't happen. And surprise thing was both the captains wanted to bat first on that pitch.
Yeah, I was about to ask you initial thoughts. Obviously, good. Bumrah has won the toss, and he opted to bat. Would you have would you have done different? Do you think that was a good call in terms of the big picture?
I think so. Like I would have batted second because given the conditions, right, and seeing the pitch, there was especially for our bowlers, right, they could have like maybe 150 is like I feel like if that pitch was given to India in the first session, right,
Mhm.
they wouldn't have got like they would have got like 70, 80 odd.
You
Those
think the Indian bowlers would have exploited the pitch conditions
but
better
much
than
better.
Australia did?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, definitely. That's my feeling.
Yeah.
They would have exploited better than. And Australia is already, as I like, in the podcast before this, I already told like they're already on the back foot. They know that this team has like defeated in two series back to back now, and they've defeated with a team which was like like a third status for them in terms of in the amount of play matches those guys had played. So the Gabo ones. I'm talking about the Gabo ones. So that is always there behind their back, and you can see the way they have approached this game as well. They have been a bit defensive in terms of picking up the bowlers and like the batsmen and other things. So that gives a bit of a defensive approach for Australia. So India is actually it's mentally on top before the game started. So, but yeah, we will continue and discuss each and every batsman how they played and what they could have done better.
Sure. Yeah.
And
No.
there was
Yeah.
some disciplined bowling by India, but yeah, we'll come to that as well. What could have been done better by the Indian bowlers. Yeah.
No, absolutely right. So one of the things on back of my mind is I'm sure India would be the happier camp at the moment in
Yeah,
terms of obviously winning the toss, opting to bat first, and obviously didn't get to a total where the Indian team or the Indian camp could have been comfortable. But
yeah,
nevertheless, skipper Bumrah really hit the ground running from ball one, and obviously we're in a state where we managed to get 7 wickets on day one, and we still have that relatively small lead, but still 83 runs is the current lead, given they still have 3 wickets in hand. So kind of quickly looking into our batting side of things, right? First
yeah.
thoughts on KL Rahul. I personally think he really gritted it out. He was there to make it count.
So his approach was good, which we had discussed in the last pod as well, right? In our last meeting, I felt like that is the approach he needs to take in. You know, bit unlucky in terms of the decision. What I felt was the umpire was a bit in a hurry, the third umpire, right, to give because generally it's if you don't have enough conclusion, right, evidence, then the on-field umpire decision stays, or you need to have like conclusive evidence, then you upturn the on-field umpire decision. What I felt was like they could have looked into a different angle as well, it's test match, right? So uh, they could have, given some. If they didn't have the other angle, then they could have over. Basically, if you want to overturn a
You don't
decision,
overrule like on-field umpire decision unless you have something very
felt like
conclusive.
KL
Yeah.
Rahul, yeah,
Mhm.
even if he was out, they should have taken some extra, seconds or maybe a few more seconds to actually look into all the angles and then try to give the decision, right? Then the controversy wouldn't have been there.
Yeah.
And India's history with Australia,
Mhm.
especially before the DRS system, we have seen all those matches when in the 90s and early 2000s, there were some really Steve Buckner's decisions, right? In 2008
Yeah,
series.
some
So
poor decisions historically, but I think DRS is always a touch and go, right? So this is where they say with DRS, unless and until you have something conclusive, that you can turn on-field umpire station, you kind of stick with it. But yeah, I think you made a great point there, right? So it was a little bit hasty, if it's the right thing to say about the third umpire. But unfortunately for India and KL Rahul, the station sort of kind of went, against the Indian top order. But yeah, I think he started off well. Definitely, try to beat it out one end. He kind of held on to it and try and kind of play one end. But obviously, unfortunately, SSV Jaiswal didn't have the ideal start that he would have wanted, and that's anticipated, right? With him playing in Australia for the first time and kind of facing like someone like Mitchell Stark, who balls at the high 140s into 150s, that's sort of something that you kind of expect.
yeah, and like the opening spell, which I looked into the highlights as well, which Australia started, Stark and Hazelwood, they were on fire actually, and they were like generally Stark, he like his length especially and line, is all wavered initially, but
Mm-hmm.
he was good. And then and Hazelwood is Hazelwood, man. Right? That guy is like a machine, bowling machine. He goes on, and that's why he got those 4 wickets, right? So, uh, and this pitch, like he didn't have to do much because there was a huge deviation, man. Like generally, what I understand from the status, like this is close to 0.8 degrees deviation, and generally it happens in the early morning, right?
Yeah.
And then mm, the pitch eases out. But here it didn't happen. And India, when they came in, it stayed like, they had somewhat similar conditions, but Australia had better conditions. Actually, they could exploit more where they had India in the map. And then we'll talk about Pant and, Nitish approach. And, if you remember the previous podcast, we were talking about that approach as well, that you need to have somebody like a Pant in between to, take the game away. So yeah, definitely. So this was like in terms of, I think so. There's a record in terms of wickets which has fallen in one day.
Mhm.
Uh, that's another record. I think after 1952 or something. I have to
Yeah,
look
that's what
into
I'm
that.
reading. Apparently, it happened back in 1950s where they managed to get like 19 wickets in one day, and
Yeah.
since then, this is the second time in Australia where there was 17 wickets
Uh,
on day one.
it feels a bit surprising. Both the captains are bowlers, so the bowlers are like giving the best conditions for them to win the match. So they don't care for the batsmen. So yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. No, that's a good point actually. Have been the skippers on either side, been the seam bowlers, and they probably
Yeah.
kind of opted for the pitch and everything else sort of to follow.
That's it.
But yeah, I think you made a good point about Hazelwood, right? And this is something we kind of discussed in the previous podcast as well. He's someone who at top, yeah, he'll come hold this in line and length, and he's someone he doesn't try too much. He just puts the ball out there outside out stump, and then if you're a batsman, you can actually not go at it, then you can probably survive. But he's so consistent with his line and length. There's always a chance he'll probably pick some early wickets, and that's what he's done historically, and he kind of delivered that again.
And that's something why you needed a Pujara in front of Hazelwood, right? He
Sure.
was blunting overs and overs and overs, right? So the other batsmen didn't have enough balls to face Hazelwood,
Hmm.
and then they could score against like Stark and Pat Cummins and the other bowlers in the previous series, right? So you want somebody who can actually face Hazelwood because his line and length is like a bowling machine. He goes on and on, right? And then you need a batsman like a Pujara on the other side to blunt Hazelwood out, and then you will see that if KL Rahul gets stuck in, right, and if he gets Hazelwood, then I think so India will have a great chance actually in the second innings. Might get, I hope they get 200, 250 runs in the second innings. And if whatever they get from this, like I'm hoping they get them all out under 100. So you have a 50 runs lead, and then take it from there. It's like anything around 250 plus chasing will be difficult. But it also depends if the pitch eases out. You never know, right? So it's not like India, where the pitch in the first few days is better, and then it really gets bad. Especially in Australia and in England as well, right? The first day or the second day, because it's a green pitch, you'll have
Mhm.
more safe, you'll have more, and then flattens out. So
Yeah,
some similar with, with Australia as well. And most probably that could be one of the reason why Bumrah opted to bat first, because he thought like maybe in the first innings and the day three and day four would be the best days to bat. So that could be one of the reason why he thought like, or both the captains were actually thinking to bat first. So they wanted to blunt the first session and then see. But yeah, as you
yeah.
know, like
Yeah,
52
something
hit.
I've kind of watched on while I was watching live as well. Like when Mike Hussey did his pitch report, he did mention that, like, the first couple of hours it might actually do a little bit, but then once the top layer kind of eases off, it might get easy to bat. So maybe that's why Bumrah kind of went with that call. But yeah, really coming back to like the team, right? So your thoughts on Virat Kohli in terms of his approach yesterday. One of the things when I was watching live, I picked up is he made a conscious effort and decision of actually, like, staying at least a couple of inches outside the crease and trying to, like, navigate the, like, swing.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the delivery, is Gemma for delivery. There's no way you could have avoided that from Hazelwood. Like, the bounce actually caught him off guard. But yeah, your initial thoughts in terms of what you've seen yesterday, and he
Um,
could have done anything different.
no, that's the best approach. And that's like, the best approach to, especially when you have this, like close to zero point 0.8 degrees of swing and seam movement, right? So you have to, stand like at least a foot away from the crease to navigate, like, and ensure that, like, you're not able to like get that seam. So the only thing which I felt was, he still has the aggressive, like, I don't know, the aggressive approach which he never had for test match. There were, he used to like, bat and bat and bat, and 30 balls, 2 runs, 3 runs. uh I feel like, back of his mind he has still that T20 approach. Maybe that's coming from what Rohit does. Kohli
Mhm.
is not a player, and if you remember the World Cup as well, which we talked about, that approach was not working for him. He needs time on the pitch, and then he has that time to accelerate. Something which I felt like he was trying to be a bit aggressive.
Mhm.
He was trying to, get like to the Aussies, and maybe that, you know pitch, the ball was like, I definitely agree, it was like something which, but maybe that approach of being aggressive, right, that does not work with Kohli. He needs to, play his natural game, which he does for years and years, right? If he
Sure.
tries too much, it's not going to work for him. So he needs to play his natural game. Wait, it's a test match. You have like 5 days. Nobody's looking at your strike rate. They're looking at the number of runs you score. So I would suggest like,
Probably
suggesting.
just buy his time and, like, probably ease into
Guys,
the game.
and that's what I think. So everyone within the team would be talking about, or he might be analyzing his game as well. This is not like India where you just come in and start around. You have to buy your time. So yeah.
No, sure, fair point, right? And obviously, kind of moving on, Rishabh Pant, we kind of discussed this in the previous podcast as well, in terms of how he's going to be the X factor. He'll absolutely counter attack and take it to the bowlers. And we've seen, like, some of his aggressive batting where he's stepping down to, like, someone like Mitch Marsh or, like, Hazelwood for some that reason. And obviously, he did try to counter line as soon as he stepped into, like, the ball, the first delivery. You can see literally see him, like, itching to, like, come down the track. So unfortunate that he couldn't really accelerate, but 37 of 78 deliveries. But that kind of set the tone a little bit for India, I would say, in the middle order. Your
Yeah,
thoughts?
absolutely. Because you had KL Rahul. If you see the first, like between the first four batsmen, right? You had uh, two ducks basically, Padikkal and Jaiswal,
Mhm.
right? both newbies, and like they didn't have that how the Australian pitches, plus the pitches seeming about.
Yeah.
So Particle, okay, a bit unlucky, but we'll talk about him later.
Mhm.
uh, like that was only approach actually, because if you're down with just 30 odd runs, 4 wickets down,
Yeah.
so then you know that, like, you're looking at your tail very quickly, because you have like Zurel, who's never batted. You have Reddy. Sundar has batted in the Gaba one. He scored some 20 odd runs, and he was there, right? So, but that's it, right? I think so. That was the only approach to get out, and something similar Alex Carey did.
Mhm.
He wanted to get out, and he did. He got the 20 odd runs, right? And if you see Labuschagne, we're going to talk about him as well. So especially on this pitches, right? If there's so much deviation, the only way is like, if there's a ball, you need to take runs. uh, so that's the only approach here, right? And I think the Pant did the best, and thankfully he got to 150, or India would have got out to 70, 80 odd run. They wouldn't have got to 150.
Fair enough. Yeah. And What on Nitish Reddy? I think it's an unbelievable debut for someone to come in at number
Absolutely. I've
eight
been
and
talking
scoring
about
40.
him the day he debuted for Hyderabad. So I'm like big fan of that guy. We need those all rounders, right? Who can actually. And I talked about Pandya. He's the next guy. I hope like he keeps fit, because it is going to be difficult across all the three formats, right? Bowling, fast bowlers, all rounding is one of the most difficult tasks, right? And they get injured a lot. So he and the way he approached, brilliant approach, right? He hit a six, hit six fours. Um, Bit unlucky, but I think so. His approach, he knows what he needs to do. And actually, when you come really down the line, right, when you're coming like where he bats like 7 or 8, right, you know that you're with the tailenders, right? So that also gives a bit of a freedom, right? That you're not actually trying to save the match, or like trying to score big runs. You're there like just trying to get things going. So maybe that also helped as well. But I'm really surprised that the way he batted was like, generally when you're debuting, right, especially in Australia, you want to like hold on, and then, but good approach, and that's what you need down the order.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And he didn't show any nerves. He was as soon
Absolutely.
as he got in, he's playing as if he's used to his conditions, and he's used to playing at that level. So yeah, credit to him for a 21-year-old to come in and do what he did. I think some big things coming up towards Nitish's way going forward.
Yeah.
But overall, I think at one stage, we're looking at 50 for 4, and from that to actually counter attack and actually make 150. I think it's like a decent amount of runs, given that added so much pressure on the Australian bowlers all of a sudden, where you know
Yeah. So I think so, like Nitish and Pant took us out from that situation very well, in terms of the day one thing. Something like in terms of the bowling, right? Especially with Indian bowlers, right? They have a tendency of bowling back of length in India, because the pitches are not like that bouncy, right? The bounce, like, generally what happens is like in India, right? When you pitch back of the length, the ball will still hit the stumps, right? I think Bumrah, if you see the wickets which Bumrah did, yeah, like the 4 wickets which he has got, only one was like back of the length. The 3 wickets were really, you know, hitting, like, got like big perfect. Definitely, it was going to hit the stumps. So it was actually here hitting those stumps. Something with Siraj in his initial spell when he came in, he was not doing. You could see most of, because of that Indian pitches, right? You have the tendency of back of the length, because you can't drive those balls, right? But in Australia, those balls will fly over the stumps, right? Then he did the way he set up Labuschagne, right? That was brilliant. Back of the length, the balls were going, and then suddenly he sent one down, and brilliant. Harshit again, he needs to learn very quickly, because this is not like you have enough runs. There's nothing you cannot defend here, right? So you see his the way he's bowled. He's done the same thing because on the Indian pitches he's been bowling that shot back of the length, right? And the one wicket which he took, head, you see, it was right there, which
Yeah,
hit.
I think in this conditions, like you have to bowl, up the
You
pitch, and you can't do that like in a short length,
you the
which
pass,
you used to in Indian conditions.
and on length a little bit, like maybe a few inches, then you will get more wickets because of the seaming conditions. It's
Yeah,
also swinging as well. Back of the length, Labuschagne, right? I don't know, 30, 40 balls he played with just 2, 3 runs. But if you see most of the balls, he was just like leaving it. And the balls, because he was judging on the length and he knew that the ball will fly over the stumps. The one which took him was the one which was fuller length. So something which the Indian bowlers need to learn very quickly. Bumrah is like exceptional. He doesn't need to do that, because he was the only bowler from the very beginning. If you see his opening spell, right, he knew which length to hit. So something which the other two bowlers like, and even if Nitish gets a chance tomorrow, he needs to ensure that like he's not bowling like it's not an Indian pitch, right? He needs to bowl on length or like a better fuller length. More chances he'll get the wickets quickly because slight seaming movement and you're done. Leg before wicket or you'll get caught behind. So I'm hoping that's something which these guys can do tomorrow. So
yeah, sure, and absolutely. Like, yeah, you kind of already touched on Siraj and Rana, right? So obviously, bowling full and let the ball do the talking is important. And that's something we've seen from our own skipper, like Bumrah. Obviously, picking up 4 wickets, especially the top three. Like, how quickly he was able to adjust to the conditions. I think it was brilliant. So maybe a quick word on Bumrah.
well, I just told him, right? He don't like, if you see his opening spell, right, he knew where he was bowling. It was not like an Indian pitch, right? And if you see his bowling stats and where he pitched the ball, most of the balls were, on the fuller length because he could. And he's the goat, man. There were the stats which came out like anybody above 150 wickets in terms of average. He's the second best in the world in the
Yeah, no,
entire
absolutely. Yeah. And I don't think
history of.
even rank one is someone like, probably way, before our times. I don't even recognize those names, but yeah, Bumrah right now
Right
appears to
now,
be the best bowler.
he
Yes.
is, he is the most analyzed bowler in the world. Yeah, everybody knows that. And even after that, they're not able to pick up. That means there's something different about him, right? Most of the bowlers, right, people know, James Anderson and okay, how do we adjust towards, right? The thing is with Bumrah, he does not need a pitch to bowl. He can bowl in all conditions. You see other bowlers, right? If the conditions are not there, they get. But even in Indian conditions, Bumrah's, average and the way he bowls his Yorkers, he reverse swings the ball, right? It's I'm like maybe because we support India and we support the Indian team, but you can hear Washim Akram when he talks about him, the the passion behind what he talks about Akram, like Akram talks about Bumrah, sorry. You realize like, oh God, we have a gem, like he might be the best cricketer ever produced in India, like hands down.
No, absolutely. I think as things stand, like, he's probably the best going around. And like, the point you made about him, like, being able to bowl, like, with the same intensity, same pace, and obviously, the same, thought process in any conditions, kind of, puts him apart from like, the current, fast
Yeah,
bowlers.
any fast bowlers, any fast bowlers, right? If you see his stats in Australia, in South Africa, in India, and in England, everywhere he's got, wickets, right? It's not like you will find bowlers who haven't done well in India, right? Even on the spinning tracks. But this guy actually in spinning tracks has got wickets. So you can imagine, right, how good he is, and how he adjusts the length and line, and the pitch is slightly, it doesn't matter for him basically. So, but yeah, we are lucky that way, and because of that opening spell, right, we are where we are today, 67 for 7, and Australia is in the back foot. So, Bumrah.
Absolutely, I think he's a good, and he'll play an important part, like, obviously, for us throughout the series. But really quickly, and Manas Labuschagne, right? Obviously, he made that comment before the series in terms of how he wants to take Pujara's approach. And on a lighter note, he's tend to have done it because the amount of body blows he took yesterday, they were no less than what Pujara had like in the previous series. But yeah, I think credit to Indian bowler, they kind of kept at him, and he couldn't find a way to kind of score freely. I think but
Yeah.
his approach, I
See,
think do you think he could have done something different, play his natural game rather than trying to be someone else?
no, like he used to play that way, but there is like, he has that tendency of which Steve Smith has, moving in the pitch, right? So if you see his stats as well, right? The first 30 odd matches where he has got like 11 centuries, yeah. And the next 21 test matches he's got just one century, right? So see, each and every team, right, will analyze the batsman. That's how it works, right? He I guess, like, because he walks across the pitch, right? And if you see, he that shot which he played with Siraj, right? It was more for mid-on shot rather than, like, playing. He was trying to flick it, and that's why he hit that. It's because that approach of not trying to take runs, right, and just trying to block that. So definitely his natural instinct is to take the singles and go ahead. So there were a lot of balls which you could have gone for a single and try to, like, maneuver the field around. He didn't do it. He was like back of his mind, he was thinking, "Okay, it's seeming, let me like block it out." And somewhere down the line, right, this is like Australian conditions, right? It has never happened that for the entire day, you have the seeming conditions, like, what the stats are coming out, like, 0.8 degrees. It has never happened. So maybe, being an Australian player, he knew that, like, the pitch during, when the sun bakes in, is going to ease out, and then maybe he was playing for that approach as well, and he didn't realize that the bowlers will get tired, and then he'll get an opportunity to bat, right? But naturally, the way Bumrah changed his bowling attack, he was playing 3 overs here, and then giving back to Siraj, then Harshit, then he was coming from the other side of the pitch, brilliant captaincy, man. This was like hands on, he was like there and there, and he gave him, like, two for himself. He just gave like 2 or 3 over spells, not the long ones. Initial one was 5 over, then he just 2 3 overs, then he changed around. He bought in Harshit. Harshit picked that wicket. Then he moved him out. Then he bought in Siraj. Then he came in. So there was a relentless attack. So, and plus they absolutely exploited the conditions. So yeah. So Labushan, actually, if he continues in the other 4 test matches this way, he'll score runs. He will score runs because you won't have the same conditions coming in through. So, but I think so. His approach
Yeah,
was right.
yeah. But again, I
Yeah.
think maybe that's where you give the credit to the bowlers, right? They've really kept at
Absolutely.
it and like, actually gone for the kill. Day two, what are your thoughts? Like, what do you think they should do different or stick to like the current
No,
approach?
no, absolutely. Just keep line and length. If you try to, like, which Harshit was trying to do, short pitch and this that, it's not going to help, right? Just the pitch is there for you. Exploit those conditions. Don't do back of length. Just length bowling. You'll get those wickets. The ball is seaming both ways, right? So, and then you have Bumrah. He'll come fresh tomorrow. We are in the tail, right? I'm worried about Stock, because Stark is one guy who can, like, take the game away. Um, he has nothing to lose, and he has those shots with him. If you see today as well, right? He was swinging his bat, but it was not like blindly swinging, right? So he has that thing. If he gets a quick 20-30, then it's going to be a challenge. There's only 83 runs. I hope India gets them all out under 100. That's what I think. If they can get them, like 90 or around about 100, then we have a 50 runs lead. India comes to bat. I have a feeling that the pitch is going to ease out. It's not, you're not going to have the same seam movement. Uh, then yeah, looks like if we can score like 200, 250, then definitely we are there and then and thereabout, like, in this, because we
I
have
agree,
the.
right? I think, yeah, I'm kind of listening that on the some of the commentary as well. Like, any lead over 50, and then to kind of pile up on that would automatically add some pressure for like Australia to kind of chase in the fourth innings. It's going to get tricky in terms of batting. So
Yep.
yeah, I think if as soon as the quicker they can get like Carey and Stark out of the way, I think we're pretty much in the tail, and then we can quickly wrap this up. So yeah, I think you made a good point there. Try and
Like,
have that like
Stark are like something like Nitish and Pant. combination, if they can get those 50, 60 runs quickly, Carey bats like, I think so currently in terms of where he batted in Sheffield, and he's got good runs, like 91 in the last test match or something against New Zealand. That's what I heard, like when the commentators was talking about him. So he is playing carefree. Carey's playing carefree, basically.
Absolutely, yeah. He might just take the same approach as a punt or
Okay.
someone where you can
I
relax,
think
right?
so. Yeah, they have nothing to lose actually. They've got 67 for 7, 83 runs, hit few fours, 30, 40, 50 runs. They'll cross 100, and then anything like 20, 30 runs leads doesn't matter for the Australian team, because the pitch is going to ease out. Definitely, day three. So India is still slightly on the second dip. They didn't realize that they will come back so quickly. So third, fourth day might ease out a bit, and then so it's not that like 200 cannot be chased or 250 cannot be chased. It's going to ease out, and they now know how the Indian bowlers are going to bowl. So second innings they'll approach slightly different maybe. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting though.
No, absolutely. Yeah. Kind of looking forward. Like I said, I think day two, the first hour is going to be crucial for us if we can wrap the Australian batters like the low order quickly, and then take a conscious approach and try and kind of bat it out a little. I think the first session or through lunch, I think India definitely has a very good chance to kind of pile up some important runs and to kind of make the rest of the test quite interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, definitely. But let's see.
absolutely fun.
Yeah,
Yeah, appreciate your time today. I know it's going to be a quick one for a day one, but we'll try and probably catch up again in a couple of days time. But before we wrap up, really quick question on the upcoming auction that's going to happen this weekend.
yeah.
One player who do you think is going to demand or probably go for the highest amount? My options for you are Punt, KL, Shreyas Iyer, Josh Butler, or someone like a Sam Curran or someone in the all rounders. Someone who would probably go for the biggest bid.
Pant, Pant. Um,
That's good.
is see, and we discussed this in our last podcast as well, right? It's not only about like you also need to have a fan base, right? Wherever Pant moves, right? He has a huge fan base, and it's not about his cricket, right? It's also about like the fight, from where he was, right? Everybody thought like he'll never play cricket again. He comes back in the IPL. He plays really well, though this close to actually qualifying, and then naturally in the World Cup he comes in, and the carefree approach he plays, and like he's bailed us out a number of times in those really tricky pitches in US. And then now so, and plus it's about his the fight back from the injury, and the accident which he had. That also helps a lot, and there's a lot of people who look up to him now, and he's the next big thing in India, right? Him, if even if he's not the captain, right? It's like a Sachin Tendulkar thing, right? Where he was not the captain, but he still was like the main guy, right? Something with Kohli as well as of now. So Pant is in the same league, right? If it even if he's not the Indian team captain or he doesn't get captaincy, right? But he would be that one player where the fans will move across. Plus, he's the way he bats, man. Some crazy batting, right? So
Yeah, no, X Factor, right? He brings in the X Factor, and like the point you made, he'll
sure.
build fan base for you, and he's the entertainer. Like you need an IPL, so in your team, so
So
absolutely.
he
So yeah,
creates a
quite
brand
looking
value
forward.
for whichever team picks him, right? He'll create a brand value for that. Delhi, frankly speaking, I watch Delhi is just because of Pant.
Yeah,
Uh, it's not if I won't like say
I mean they still have
Rajasthan.
the opportunity, right? Right to match. They could obviously bring him back. It all depends on whether that's what he
Like the
wants to
thing
play,
is,
and that's
if
where his
he's
heart
come to the
is.
auction, right? I don't think so. They'll do an RTM
Yeah,
because uh, he would have already told the owners that I don't want to play for you.
yeah, no, absolutely right. So
And that's
there's
my
something in
feeling.
there that we obviously are not familiar with outside, but that I'm just saying, like I'm throwing that out, saying that's an opportunity if Delhi wants to, they can absolutely
Yeah, and
take
like
that
because
approach.
Delhi knows very well, right? Pant was their main brand ambassador. The fan base was for Pant. There's nobody in Delhi, right? Apart from Pant, you can like just think he has a fan base, right? So they would easily give him 25 crores because the budget was not it you can divide it like equally, or you can give the number one player as much as one, and then you can talk to him
Yeah,
like a uh, um, Mumbai has done, right? They've just given equal, just some 20, 25 lakhs here and there, and they've just given 16 crores each to the
Yeah.
key players. They could have done that, given him 25 crores or something, and then, kept him. I don't think so. They're going to do an RTM on him.
Fair play. Yeah, let's see. Obviously, I wish him good luck, and hopefully he does come out on top with some
Yeah,
big
absolutely.
bucks, and I'm kind of looking forward to.
I hope Jaiswal bats, man. I'm like, I just want to see him, like, play those, 20, 30 balls, right? If he gets going, man, this is going to be some crazy series, man. Just that one guy needs to, like, just take us away, especially on those pitches, right? I hope, like, he'll do something tomorrow. Fingers crossed, right? Even if he gets a quick 30, 40, right, that gives him a lot of confidence that, okay, he can bat in Australian pitches. Then when we go through those easy conditions, right, Sydney and Melbourne, those places, right, then he'll have an opportunity to score those big runs. Australia is one place where um, you score really big runs. You see Sehwag's innings, Dravid, Sachin's highest score. All of that has happened in Australia. You know,
No,
it's not that.
absolutely, yeah,
But we didn't have those bowlers, right? We had like one bowler and two bowlers. That's the reason we never converted those. It was either we used to lose or like like draw a match, right? But we have the bowlers now. So if the conditions eases out, then you have like really this. You have Kohli, you have Jaiswal, who can play those 200 runs innings, right? So even KL as well, right? So we have those players now, but yes, fingers crossed.
absolutely, yeah. No, let's see how things go, and we'll connect probably in a day or two, Pan. But really appreciate your time today, and yeah, hope to connect soon again on our wrong ends.
Yep, sure.
Have a good night. Bye.
Good. Cheers, bye.